So I was working on this a few months ago, and you can see I've got some brush piles that are 8-9 feet tall. Yeah. But look at this explosion. Mm-hmm. That's what he was talking about.
Yep.
And see, I left that baby oak. And now, is he going to straighten up, or should I just cut him?
You can straighten it up. It'll probably be fine. What I've done in the past is I'll take one of these trees that I've cut down, and I'll cut it so that there's a fork, and I'll just put that fork on it, and I'll just push it over, and I'll push it just a little bit past where it needs to be, and I'll leave it for 3 months or so, and then I'll let go of it, and it'll come back straight.
Okay. Look at this. He can't even stand up straight.
Yep.
And I tried to tie him up because he was leaning that way. And so then he leaned over the other way.
What you can do is go right above this first good branch and snip that sucker off, and you'll pollard it really high.
Oh, so I can keep the log.
And then you can keep that log, and it'll start branching out and it'll make a new central leader.
Ah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, got it.
So if you say, hey, I want a 12-foot log, go 13 feet up and then top it.
Yep.
And then it'll lose all that weight on the top, and then you'll be able to straighten it up.
Nice. I hadn't thought of that. Excellent idea.
And then it'll make a nice, pretty bushed out tree. It won't be too tall and leggy that it'll uproot.
One day for Beckett's.
There you go.
So in the process of clearing out for pasture, when I cut this tree, I had no idea what coppicing even was. Mm-hmm. Right, and so I was coppicing and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Right, and so now I've literally created sheep feed accidentally.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's awesome.
Will all that grow back out real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
leave it, let it recover, and you can keep doing this.
They won't be back here for 30 days probably, and that'll be ready to go again. Yeah.
You can probably actually do this same kind of thing if you've got that kind of interval with a plot full of white mulberry, or just a strip of white mulberry in each planned paddock.
Just have a strip.
You could have a strip, and then they'll harvest it, and then every winter you just bush hog it down.
Yeah.
Just straddle that row with your bush hog and just.
Because that's why I was cutting all these so I could go over them with the bush hog. That was my goal, but I was coppicing and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And I've worked back maybe 50 yards and then maybe 100 yards that way so far.
Mm-hmm.
But this is ready for them to come in and
absolutely
and leave them a day.
Oh yeah.
And then, so
leave them 3 days. Leave them a week.
And coppicing actually helps.
It'll rejuvenate the trees.
It's like a brand new tree at that point.
Yep.
So that's why a tree can last 1,000 years.
Yep. Because you keep resetting it back to basically teenager status. Wouldn't that be awesome? Go get a haircut and you're like 20 years old again.
Yeah, just coppice me about right here.
Yeah.
And then I'll be a teenager again.
That'd be awesome.
I'm a teenager now, knowing what I know.
Right.
That'd be bad, probably. But that's the plan for all this, and you can see how dense it gets back there.
Oh yeah.
It hasn't worked yet. Literally no sunlight whatsoever makes it to the ground.
This is going to be so beautiful. I can't wait to see what this looks like in 5-6 years.
That's the plan. But now I've got several little areas like this, Nick, and I would like, there's my permanent fence and there's my road. Those are hard boundaries.
Yep.
And I've got this thing.
Yep.
What could I do with that? I mean, obviously keep the white oaks.
We're pretty centrally located.
Yep.
You could take out all of the big trees. You could take out the stumps.
Yep.
You could disc it up and get it, kind of leveled out. And you could plant rows of fodder trees in here, white mulberry.
So
every 9 foot
fodder orchard.
Yeah. Oh. And it's right here. So if you've got your wood chipper or whatever, and you come out here and you spend, I don't know, half an hour cutting a whole bunch of stuff, stacking it, shredding it, putting it in barrels. Barrels can just sit out here in the shade.
Right.
If you need to let animals do the harvesting, quick temporary fence. Yep. 2 strands right here. You've got fence over there and there.
And this is part of the paddock 3 days ago. They had this too, and they cleaned it up. But then if in a pinch, in the middle of the drought, August, I could turn them in here and just chop the mulberries.
Yep.
Yeah, and they just wear them out.
Yeah. Just if they're coppice, they're down low. Just let them in there, and then just let them harvest.
And mulberries. Do they send out really tall shoots like a birch?
They'll go about 8 foot a year.
Okay, so a good amount of biomatter.
Yeah.
Okay. And just coppice them.
Yep.
How many? Once a year? that what you
No,
do?
you can. I mean, you can.
Multiple times a year.
You can keep harvesting them
Sexy, Jake.
as they get.
Multiple times a year.
Oh yeah, as they get bigger and they grow better. Like these stumps,
Yeah.
you can come back here and let them eat on these.
Right.
In a couple months, they'll be completely leafed back
right.
out.
So same concept.
Same concept.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you get these established.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years down the road, you'd probably be able to take a cutting every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. Or I could leave them in here 3 days, and that'd just be one of the rotations. It'd be nothing but white mulberry leaves.
Just be careful; it's really high protein.
Right. So maybe one day here, and
Yeah.
then move them on.
Yeah.
And that's
It's like that clover on steroids.
Yeah, they'll have a good protein shake for one day, and then go
Yeah.
back to the diverse pasture.
Yeah.
Or you could use it to make the compost.
Or you just
I could put it in the tower.
Absolutely. And then if you end up with another spot down low where it's too wet
Right.
and it's detrimental.
I have that spot right here.
Yeah. And it's going to be a detriment to the parasite load or whatever, then go down there and fill it up with hybrid willow and hybrid poplar, which will grow just fine in swamps.
Right.
And you can do the same kind of thing with that stuff. And you can feed rabbits almost exclusively on willow.
Really?
So, I mean, we're talking about having some livestock guardian dogs.
Right.
Well, you have a bunch of rabbits in cages,
Right.
and you're harvesting the willow.
So
It's
I'm feeding
free.
my guardian dog
It's free
willow
food.
leaves through
Exactly,
the rabbit.
exactly.
Yeah. That's sexy.
Because
Why not?
that is a free, just for the labor of harvesting the willow.
Yeah.
You are buying yourself a 24/7, 365 security detail that is actively patrolling and working on interdiction to protect your flock
Yeah.
and your family.
The guardian dogs.
Right.
Yeah.
And what
Who
does it cost?
happen to love rabbits?
And dude, it's so simple. I will take the rabbit out of the cage, cervical dislocation, and I'll toss it over the fence,
That's it.
and I'm done.
Can't beat that.
You cannot beat that.
So this would be
anything left at all? Bone?
No, they eat the whole
They
thing.
eat everything. Poop out the fur, just like
Yep.
a coyote would.
So I mean, imagine that this whole paddock over here, or this whole thing, you get the big old lumps of dirt, you get it all smoothed out,
Right.
and this is just all
Yeah.
white mulberry.
White mulberry.
Could you turn that into all the feed to increase your stocking density to the
Even
point
more.
even more?
Mm.
And can you be dropping a double crop of lambs because you're feeding extra protein in the
Losing
winter?
no condition.
You're-
not increasing the risk of parasites, not increasing the
Right.
risk of disease,
Mm-hmm.
and having you healthily drop double lamb every year, but still staying very healthy and very well nourished.
And what does that look to your bottom line as compares to your competition?
That's astronomical bottom line boost if you could do that. So you've seen my farm, ranch, project, whatever. Any glaring errors, any things I need to do differently or better, any words of wisdom, or just scrap it all and move back to the city? What do you say?
You're knocking it out of the park. There's very few things that I would have done differently. I would have set the fencing up a little bit differently, to, like we're talking about alongside that road, to maximize that a little bit. But even though you didn't do it just the way I would, now you have little niche opportunities to plug in those fodder trees like we talked about. That might just end up being a phenomenal, just happy accident.
Mm-hmm. I like
Having that right alongside the access means it's quick and easy to harvest. If you need to get in there real quick with a battery powered tool and just harvest some fresh stuff to go feed something, it's right there, easy to grab.
Yep.
So that's a really nice efficiency thing. Your layout for your garden, most people are a lot more garden vegetable centric. I understand that you're not. Seeing as how you're not, this is phenomenal. There's just a little bit of fresh produce for the little tiny bit that y'all have in your diet. I couldn't have laid that out any better. It's really close, nice. The berry bushes and everything. Great location. The grapes, cane fruits, again, great location. That's exactly what I would have done. I would have gone away from your zone 1 area. with your decreasing attention needs, which is exactly what you did.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to come out here and screw around with these blueberries a couple times a year. They're further away than your cane fruit, which you'll screw around with more than a couple times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then on and on, further we go down there, the closer you get to the house, the more intensive your maintenance needs are going to be. That's all great. We talked about, you know, how you have the persimmons popping up everywhere. Phenomenal. Learn how to graft, because we can be plugging in some amazing higher production that would be a nice like adjunct little business plug-in thing. So if you end up with someone who's really into the fruit and the produce side of things, there's an opportunity there to come in once a year or twice a year, 1 week of the year,
right,
and harvest a whole bunch of persimmon,
right,
and turn it into a value-add product.
So let me ask you this: even if some of these common persimmons turn out to be females, would it not be perhaps more advantageous to just graft them all and be done with it with a hybrid that's much more productive?
Quite possibly, because the nice thing about this hybrid that I'm talking about, that I don't know if anyone watching actually has access to, because it's my horticultural mentor who got it from one of his good friends, and he rubbed shoulders with some lofty individuals, and he gets stuff that nobody gets. And he's excited about this one. He said it is non-astringent like the Asian persimmons. The problem with the Asian persimmons when it comes to feeding livestock is they hang on the trees.
Right.
That's good if you want to pick them,
Right.
but if you want to feed livestock, you want it to fall off the tree,
Right.
and hit the ground.
Right.
Well, this stuff makes big old persimmons. They're non-astringent, they taste amazing, and they'll fall off the tree. So it might actually be advantageous to just go ahead and graft onto all of these persimmons that you have, give them a little protection, get them up above the browse height, and then, I mean, some of those you have growing, you'll start getting persimmons the next year.
Nice.
After grafting. We talked about irrigation. When you get that pond installed, just a simple 12-volt DC pump with a solar panel, you can hide it, snug it away so no one can see it. It'll just run every day when the sun is shining. You got a lot of sunshiny days here. You've got a lot of rainfall. Whenever the sun's shining, that could be pumping up to the highest point on your property to some poly tanks, and those could be plumbed in series so that you have a lot of volume up there. And then on one of those, you just have overflow and run back to your pond. You could even have a diversion, and you could run it back to the pond, or if the pond's overflowing, you're like, I definitely don't need any more water over there, but I might need some down here. You can open it up and then shunt it to a different spot. So if the sun's shining, maybe it's not pumping, 1,000 gallons an hour, but if it's pumping 100 gallons an hour, you could be putting 100 gallons an hour into a different watershed on your property to be utilizing that, or getting it out on a ridge. There's lots of things we can do with that.
Right.
But just having that up at the highest point then means with gravity, we can get gravity fed water just about anywhere on the rest of your property.
Beautiful.
And do that very affordably. And then, if we're doing mostly sheep centric, there's very little water needs.
Right.
Especially with how moist and beautiful Middle Tennessee is.
So you think just the steady conversion of
Yep.
scrub forest into silvopasture, letting the seed bank open up and give me what it's got.
Yep. So like right over here, we've got that forest that we're transitioning from complete canopy into silvopasture. The best thing to do is just little bit by little bit, let things adapt, let things shift and change, and then keep taking out trees until you get more and more light on there, and you'll probably be looking at trees being spaced out kind of like these trees down here. They're spaced out about you know, 60 to 80, 100 feet apart. And then it'll be sunshiny all around it, but we've got these nice big canopies. It's going to take a while for them to adapt. If they're really tall and spindly, you might actually want to think about taking the next size down, something that's about 20, 25 foot tall, and leaving that as your new canopy tree. Because once you open that up, they're going to expand out. And they're not going to be so tall like we talked about, you know, that support structure.
Right.
If they're all used to having a buddy right there to hold them upright, and you take out all their buddies, they're going to go and just lay over.
I've seen it happen. And everything we've talked about in this video is applicable if somebody's just got, if they've got a 1/4 acre.
Yes.
Every single thing we talked about, every principle,
Yes.
is completely convertible to that tiny micro farm.
Yeah.
Or if they've got 40,000 acres.
Yep.
It's the same exact principles.
Same
because
principle.
You're basically allowing nature
That's, yeah.
to be your employee.
Yeah, that's why I, you know, when I do these consults, I used to get very specific about, you should do this thing in this specific spot. I've shied away from that more because what happens is I'll give people a specific plan and they'll be very excited about it. Gung-ho, it fits exactly with their goals, their vision, and the reality on the ground. 6 months later, grandma gets sick, or something changes in their life, and the plan changes.
Yeah.
And if they didn't learn the principles, then now they can't do anything. So what I've shifted more towards is, let's talk about the principles, and let's learn what's the real core root issue, and how do we deal with that from a bigger picture principles standpoint, so that when our stocking density completely changes, or you know what, we're going to have to just completely shift over to cattle, right? Well, if we learned about the principles of paddock shifting and mob grazing and all this stuff, then you're not stuck in the weeds with, well, my paddock size was this, but now I don't know what you learn the principles of observing that pasture, observing how much forage was being removed, and you've understood the principles behind that fertility management and everything. You are going in a perfect direction with all of this from what I've seen so far. Just keep on with that. You're not biting off more than you can chew.
Trying not to.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. A lot of people, they'll either get paralysis by analysis and just not do anything because they're afraid of doing it wrong. I don't see that happening. Fantastic. Is it 100% perfect? Nope. I don't do things 100% perfect. Do something. You're doing something. You're getting a hell of a lot done. I am blown out of the water by how much you've gotten done. This is in what, a year?
Yeah.
A year.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you. All right, man. Thanks so much for the consult, for coming by. And you actually do this for a living. If people want you to come and just say, okay, this is what I got. I have no idea where to begin.
Yeah.
Help me understand these basic principles so that I can turn this into a part of the world that actually puts out more than it takes in.
Yeah.
That I have more outputs and I don't have to put any inputs. I just let it do its thing.
Yeah.
So you do that for a living.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So,
I've been doing that for 10, 11, 12 years now. I've lost count of, I used to keep a count of how many sites I've been to. I lost count at 300 something.
That's how you know you're a professional. You
Yeah.
don't know how many you've helped. Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So I'll put links to all your stuff down in the
Great.
show notes so that people, if they're interested, they can find it. If not, they got this amazing content for free. Well, thanks for doing this, Nick. It's a pleasure every time I get to see you. I always learn something new.
Pleasure every time I get to see you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys. So Nick Ferguson, his links are down below. Even if you don't have the money to get a consult, he's got hours of video on YouTube and different platforms that you can watch for free.
And podcast episodes and blog posts.
Hours of podcasts where he's talking about this stuff. And if you don't find this stuff interesting, you may have trouble in the future. So I would get interested if you're not already. Thanks a lot, man. See you guys later.